Hey guys, it's me, Lauren B. Welcome to the Untitled Tarot. This is not a reading right now. This is like a little talkie. I want to talk to you guys about, it's hard for me to talk about. I want to talk to you guys about shadow work. It seems to be like the theme going on right now. A lot of people are struggling with it. I'm doing a certain amount of shadow work myself right now. I actually feel like very agitated. I feel really fucking agitated today. Like I was trying to be like, I'm feeling aggressive today, but it's like, no, like I'm like in an annoyed spirit today. Like I'm agitated. So it actually might be a good time for me to talk about shadow work with you guys. For me, and I'm gonna just stay with me here. For me, like I'm integrating like a lot of different energies right now. I'm like in the process of like a rebirth and upgrades, and I feel like a Rubik's Cube right now. I don't know if that makes sense to any of the other light workers, but like I feel like when I took my break a couple weeks ago, I was like a Rubik's Cube that was like all messed up, like every color on every side and all messed up, and slowly through the point of like twisting and the death process and all that stuff with the full moon, I'm slowly getting like my colors, I'm getting my shit together, right? And some of you who have been following me over the last like week or so, I've been having all of these like crazy dreams, and I'm trying to be more open because sometimes I forget to be open about my process. Even though there are so many videos on here of me like crying in my car about like that kind of stuff. But I've been having all these crazy dreams in relation to like my upgrades and like who I am and like what I do, and I'll probably make another video explaining some of that and who I am and what I do as a light worker more specifically. That's not totally what today's video is about. But if you caught the video I did at 2 o'clock this morning, I've been getting all these crazy dreams, and a lot of them are like collective energy work that I specifically try to avoid doing while I'm sleeping. Like I'd rather do it while I'm awake, and no, I have to do it apparently while I'm sleeping. So I've been kind of agitated for almost a week now because I'm like tired. I'm just like tired. It's like spiritually, I'm like, pachoo. It's like I have like so much spiritual energy, and like after a time of feeling like I didn't have like a lot to say, and it was like hard for me to pull messages out for everyone. I feel like I have this like surplus of like information and downloads and messages that I want to share with you guys, but like physically I'm exhausted because I'm not sleeping. I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep. Like for instance, last night I went to bed at probably like 9:45, like by 10 I was asleep. I woke up at 11:30, and then I woke up at 12:30, and then I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, had all those crazy downloads, and in the middle of that I'm like doing like collective energy work while I'm sleeping, and I'm being woken up like every like hour and a half. Like basically before I get to fall into REM sleep, which is like that good, like the good sleep, I get woken up for a variety of reasons. And then at like 2:15, 2:30, I filmed that voice note for you guys because they told me I had to. And then I was up until like 4 o'clock in the morning. Not fun, not great, Lauren. And I finally fell back asleep, and then I was up again at 5:30, and then I was up at 6:15, and then I woke up like at 7, and then finally I woke up at like 8, and I was like, okay, now I have to get up for the day because like I have stuff to do. And then I woke up, and then it's like there are people calling me, and then it's just like right? So it's like I'm in a process. And the last stream that I had, and I was talking to Dana about it in the comments of the 2 a.m. download video, if you go in and you scroll through, about how the last dream that I had before I woke up, there's different levels of the collective unconscious, right? And the last dream that I had, and a lot of times I work on higher levels. The last dream I had last night, I had sunken into like a deep like collective shadow. I had sunken into the collective shadow, which was literally the basement of a parking garage. And it was really heavy, and it was really intense, and I don't really want to specifically go into the details of that dream, but I know when I'm doing that work, because as this is continuing to happen for me, this is part of my light worker work, but it's also part of my integrated shadow work as well, that as I'm becoming more accustomed to this experience that I've been having, I find myself being more conscious in these dreams. And then when I'm in this basement of the parking garage, which is representative of the shadow of the collective unconscious, and I feel my higher self kind of clicking over into my consciousness and then acting from that place, which allows me to actually be more of a co-creator, do more like conscious work in that realm, even if I'd rather just be enjoying my REM sleep, right? And at some point towards the end of the dream, it had gotten so heavy that I literally had to like fling myself, like, and I remember literally like in the dream consciously flinging myself like off of, like, I was on like a couch kind of thing, flinging myself off of it, so that way the impact of me hitting the floor would wake me up. And that's how I woke up, and then I was annoyed. And so then I woke up this morning and all of this stuff. And I was watching like a variety of videos. I watched Russell's video. I watched a Blu-ray update from Emmy Evolving, all these different things. And they keep telling me shadow work, shadow work, shadow work. Can you talk about the shadow work? Can you talk about the shadow work? I'm like, fuck, okay, I'll talk about the shadow work. So we, as readers, as empaths, as light workers, we're always talking about shadow work, right? You got to do your shadow work, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people, you don't know what that means, right? It's just a thing that we say, but we don't always explain to everyone, like, what it means. And what shadow work is, it's addressing your shit. It's your shit, right? It's your traumas, it's your dramas, it's the stuff inside of you that causes you to self-sabotage, right? And I know that I'm, like, usually like pretty like love and light and like, you know, but I'm also, as I always say, I'm equal parts, get away from me and go fuck yourself. That's just like kind of who I am. Like I am pretty balanced in that aspect. And part of what we do when we do with our shadow work, when we do our shadow work, is you have to approach your shadow work with love and light. And what that means is it's not shaming yourself, making yourself feel bad, making yourself feel guilty for feeling feelings that feel bad, that feel like shame, that feel like guilt, that feel like trauma and pain and resentment. Acknowledging them, working through them. I was talking to Dana about this as well, when I was expressing the downloads that I had in the middle of the night, that I had voice note recorded for you guys, that they had explained it to me in terms of like the Super Bowl and quarters and all of that stuff. They speak to me in parables, which are like little like stories, like little examples for me to relate to you guys, because they're more easily digestible than me kind of coming on here and being like, the interdimensional, you know, galactic federation and the universal law of one. And it's like, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Lauren? And I get that. So I speak in like parables. I speak in stories and examples, right? Like in the Pursuit of Happiness video, when I was talking about the big giant kind of weeping over these little tiny like Minutemen poking at you with sticks, right? It's these visualizations. It's just like the tarot cards. They're just visualizations to help you digest the information easier. So the visualization, the parable, the story, the way I like to use shadow work as an example is that it's like a dog, right? Your shadow, which is your darker energies. We all have light and dark energies, just like we all have masculine and feminine energies. Your pain, your trauma, all your stuff, right? Your basement feelings, stuff that you put away in boxes and you shove into the dark corners. It's like a dog, right? And like a dog, it acts as an alert system. It's like an alarm system, right? Now, if you don't train your dog, and I would like to preface this by saying, when we talk about shadow work, a lot of times people like to make it seem like when you do your shadow work, you don't have a shadow anymore, right? You ascend past your ego, you ascend past your pride and all of that stuff. And that's not really how it works. It's more of an energy of transmutation. It's training it. You don't just get a dog and you just let it do whatever the hell it wants, right? No, you have to train it. It takes a long time. So what that is with your shadow is not to get rid of it, but it's to get in control of it, to get in control of your ego, get in control of your pain, not allowing it to supersede your ability to make conscious decisions for your highest and your best good. So like a dog, if it's not trained, it will cause chaos, right? It will run around your house. It'll piss on the carpet. It'll chew up your shoes, your pillows. It'll break out the backyard, start running around the neighborhood, terrorizing everyone, right? It'll bite people. But if you can train your shadow, like a good dog, then it becomes an alert system, an alarm system that when someone around you is on some bullshit, you'll be able to sense it. And when you're on some bullshit, you'll be able to sense it, right? When somebody's acting out of pocket with you, you'll be able to look at them and be like, you know what? You're trying to manipulate me right now. Do you know how I know that? Because I know how to manipulate people. You're trying to emotionally manipulate me. You're trying to pull on my heartstrings to get me to do what you want me to do. You know how I know that? Because it's part of your shadow is also acknowledging the shadow within you as well. Just like how we acknowledge the divine light within other people, we can only do that when we acknowledge the divine light within us. It's the same thing with your shadow. Well, I know you're trying to manipulate me emotionally because I know how to manipulate someone emotionally. I know how to go to someone and be like, oh, well, you know, if you really cared about me, well, then you would just do that, right? Because I've done that in the past. I've had to take accountability, how to recognize that. I've had to work on that, right? But I can recognize when someone else is trying to do it to me because I've done it, because I know how to do it. I recognize that in my own shadow, right? It's like when someone else is being aggressive or defensive against you, right? Or they're kind of trying to give you the cold shoulder because you're not agreeing with their line of thought or with their reasoning, or because you're not playing ball, right? I know I can recognize that because of my own shadow, because of times where I've been like, well, what the fuck? I want you to do that. Like that, fine then, fine. That's the way you're going to be about it? That's fine. And then cold shoulder that bitch. Like that's how you can recognize it. If I can identify your inner light because of my inner light, then I can identify your shadow because of my shadow. But that's because you have to know your shadow. And the way you get to know your shadow is, again, you have to love it. You have to approach it with light. And light and love is a form of forgiveness and understanding and having empathy for yourself. That you're like, you know what? I'm pissed off today. I feel smothered today. I feel like, you know, and it comes from a place of we talk about in your shadow, in your ego, we talk about feelings of abandonment and rejection and all this stuff, right? And they're almost like these little adjectives that we put on things, but we never really like explain that, right? Like you feel abandoned because someone broke up with you. Yeah, maybe, right? Somebody you loved a lot, they broke up with you, they ghosted you, now you feel abandoned. That's totally a thing. But there's also like really heavy aspects of things that hide deep within our psyches, hide within our spirits, hide in the little, you know, boxes that we hide in our shadow, hide in the basement that we don't really acknowledge. And because we don't acknowledge them, right? It's like when you see the dog chewing on the side of the coffee table and you just don't acknowledge it because you don't want to deal with it, right? Sooner or later, all your furniture is going to get chewed up. So if you can acknowledge it, you know, and it's like, again, a dog, like it's just the easiest way for me to explain it, right? So if you see your dog and it pisses on the carpet, you don't go over and beat the shit out of your dog. I know I'm cursing a lot, but again, I'm doing my shadow work, so I'm sorry. But it's like, you don't go over and beat the shit out of your dog, right? No, you go over and go, no, I see what you're doing, stop it. And then you keep an eye on it. You keep an eye on your dog. And so when you see it start sniffing around, acting a little squirrely, acting a little funny, right? So like when you acknowledge yourself, feeling a little tense, feeling a little agitated, feeling a little self-sabotagey, right? You're like, I know what you're about to do. And you take the dog and you bring it outside and you train it that way. So it learns how to not piss in your house, right? And so again, if you can train this dog, you can train your shadow. Doesn't mean you get rid of it. No, it becomes an alarm system that when something is off around you in your environment, in your relationships with people around you, but when also something is off with you in your own energy as well, right? Whether it's because you're feeling triggered, because there's something unaddressed or unhealed within you, right? Or because there's like a weird energy coming in and it's affecting you in a way that's causing friction or conflict in a way that's unnecessary. Because some conflict is necessary for your growth, right? For you to see yourself or a situation in a different light, to gain a new perspective, and then you can grow from that. But like I said, if you can train it, then what it does, like I said, it doesn't go away, doesn't live outside in the backyard by itself. It becomes an integrated member of the family. That's what your shadow does. It becomes integrated. It's your higher self and it's your shadow with your masculine and your feminine and your inner child all together under one roof, living harmoniously, right? And so there have been plenty of times where I've done shadow work in the past where I noticed my shadow getting a little out of hand and I'm like, whoa, you're biting people right now. Like you need to relax. Like I didn't tell you to come out of your hole yet. So like you need to relax right now, right? And there have been times that I've been like, so like, I forgive everyone, I love everyone, and everything's super cool, man, namaste. That like my higher self was like, what the fuck is your shadow for then? Bring that bitch out and go defend yourself, right? Go defend yourself. Stand up for yourself. Hold your ground. It's like, all right, Shadow Lauren, come on, it's time to go. It's time to go. Like, there have been times that, like, I've actually, like, woken up in the morning and sensed energy off, and I've been like, Shadow, you're on shift today. Like, get up, go guard the perimeter. Let's go. Chop, chop, right? Because it's a part of the family, and so I love it. I love my shadow. I don't shame myself for those feelings when I'm annoyed or when I'm pissed off or when I need that space or I know that I'm triggered or reacting to some kind of trauma that I haven't quite healed in every single layer, right? Because it's like when something happens to you that's really painful or really hard to process, and we go and we do our healing work, and it's not all just like healed at once, right? It's almost like the 7 layers of your skin. It gets healed. That's why situations, even if they show up in different places with different faces and different flavors, it's almost like, why am I going through this again? It's because these situations, these soul lessons, these opportunities to heal, they circle back around, right? So that way, each time it does, you can heal a new layer of it. You can learn from a higher perspective. You can make your way up when originally when it happened, you spiraled down. Again, it's the balance of things. And so, you know, like I said, we talk about the blanketing, like your trauma, your abandonment, or your fear of rejection, or like all of that kind of stuff, right? But it's such like a blanket terms. It's like these blanket adjectives like we put on it, but we never really like express that. So I feel as though they want me to give some personal examples from my own life and my own shadow work that, to be frank, I don't really want to share because it's my business. But they're saying that it's important. Again, stories, put things. So, let's talk about abandonment and rejection. Some of this stuff, this little section, it's not going to be a long section, I hope not. It may or may not be triggering to some of you. So, if we got the train your dog, love your shadow aspect. So, this is the personal anecdote section. So, if you are easily triggered by that kind of stuff, you might want to click off here. So, abandonment and rejection. I, as a person, I have actively been working on my fear of abandonment and rejection. And it doesn't just come from like ex-boyfriends or being ghosted or like any of that stuff. Like, for example, and it's the main example that they're bringing up in my head, is that when I was little, like very little, I was raised in a one-parent household. And I don't want to tell these stories. Okay, so I was raised in a one-parent household, and there were instances that I was little, like 5 years old, 6 years old, 7-year-old, little. And my parent would say, hey, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to go get a coffee. I'll be back very, very soon. Okay. They would not return for like hours and hours and hours. Sometimes they wouldn't return till like the next day. And you know, as I'm somebody that like, I'm a cook, like, before I started my YouTube channel and I realized like that this was kind of my purpose, my goal was to be a baker. I know I have a bakery and do the whole thing. It's actually still something I would really love to do. So people ask me like, when did you learn to cook? How did you learn to cook? And it's because when I was little, I was left by myself for so long that I had to learn how to make food. So I'd be like 4 years old, 5 years old, dragging like kitchen chairs across the room up to the stove, like learning how to make myself scrambled eggs because like I had to, right? And so, you know, my parent would not come back sometimes till like the next day, and I don't know what they were doing. I don't know where they went. I still don't know. I don't ask because honestly, I don't want to know because I feel like to know that would probably annoy me more, right? Because no one's perfect. No one's perfect. So for me, like my issues of abandonment and neglect, honestly, in a lot of different aspects, it comes from that. It's not just from, oh, some boy broke my heart and he ghosted me and I loved him so much, even though I got that shit too. Don't worry. I got plenty of stories in my heartbreak hotel, y'all. But like those feelings of abandonment and neglect and rejection, it comes from those instances when I was a child, right? So like that's not something that you just like heal overnight, right? And there are times I've been like very high vibe about it and been like, well, I'm just, look how resilient I am, and I'm a thriver, and I'm a survivor, and, look at me, like, I was, but then there's also parts that's like, that's really fucked up. Like, and my parents not necessarily the same person today as they were then, right? I don't understand the circumstances that would have, made that, like, the only option for them, right? I don't know. I wasn't in their head. So, like, I don't have judgment for that. Like, I have forgiveness. I really don't hold grudges, but it's just the act of, like, calling and no one picking up and not knowing when someone was going to come home and not knowing how long you were going to be by yourself and not being able to reach things on the top shelf and just little things like that, and I guess they're not little things, they're big things, right? So, like, that, when we talk about, like, your rejection and your fear and all that, like, that's an example of that, of something that consistently through my life, I've been having to acknowledge in pieces, because that's not something that is, like, you can digest in just, like, one big gulp, right? You have to piecemeal it little by little by little, and situations having to do with neglect or abandonment, right? They've popped up in different places for me through different relationships that I had or different experiences or just stuff like that, feeling left out of stuff, fucking Five of Pentacles, like all that kind of stuff. It's come up and they've given me the opportunity to work through those feelings in lesser degrees through people, places, and situations that didn't hit quite as close to home as, say, a parental figure. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I hope that it does. But again, we use these blanket terms, right? Your shadow work and this and that. But we don't really explain, like, and we also don't always have enough empathy, right? We're like, go do your shadow work. Like, it's so easy, right? Like, it's like, again, training your dog. You know how long it takes to train a puppy? It takes a long ass time. And depending how deep rooted those traumas and those pains and those fears are, who's to judge you? Most certainly don't judge yourself, right? So again, part of dealing with your shadow, it's not to get rid of it. It's to get in control of it. It is to integrate it as a part in connection to your higher self. And the way you do it is you enable your higher self, that love, light part of you, to look at your shadow, to look at your wounded inner child and be like, it's okay. It's okay that you're hurt. It's okay. You've been through some shit and it's going to take you more than a day. It's going to take you more than one full moon to purge that shit out. And you are safe. And we can walk this out. We will take you outside every half hour if that's what it takes to get this in control. But it's okay. It's your higher self saying to your shadow, I love you. I accept you. I understand you. You're not in trouble and you're not on a timeline. Your healing is not scheduled before lunch. Take your time. Take your space. If other people can't allot that to you, well, that even more so should confirm to you the fact that you need to create that space, because especially if there's no one else around you that understands or can be empathetic to the fact that you need that time to process, especially in days like this when there's so much going on. And 2020 has been such a hard year and everybody's been stuck home in quarantine by themselves with nothing to do but stare at the wall and think about all their shit, right? It's a lot to process at once and it's okay. And so they told me to come on and like, even I feel better. Just like, again, part of my shadow work. And like I said, I woke up and I was feeling 50 shades of agitated because I was like, I'm sick of this shit. Like, I'm tired. I can't get more than an hour and a half of sleep at a time. I haven't had REM sleep in like a week and a half. I'm like doing crazy fucking ninja light worker shit in my dreams. It's like, this is so much. Like, I'm having fucking consultations with the subscribers. Some of you have told me you've seen me in your dreams. Hey, it's like, and so this morning I was like really agitated and there were people that like wanted things from me, that like I was just like, I'm getting downloads, I'm getting messages, I need to stay in the flow, I need to work, like I need to focus, like I'm processing a lot of shit. And I got like really upset this morning, and I'm like looking up at Jesus, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't have it in me right now, like to you know. And they were like, you know, this is shadow work, this is just shadow work, Lauren, like you need to express this process a little bit with people so they understand that it's not supposed to be like a fucking meme. Like, this is real shit. You have to be gentle with yourself, right? You know, and that was part of my higher self kind of like woo-sawing my shadow, being like, it's okay, this is a lot of stuff, you're processing. I think you opened up a fucking portal or something. It's like you're processing, you're integrating, you're getting a lot of messages, you're taking on a lot of energy, you're purging, you're trying to heal, right? You're trying to take your time so that way you're not making impulsive decisions. You're being a conscious co-creator. Take a breath. It's all right. And I know you guys are going through a lot of the same processes. So I really wanted to talk about just like me and my sort of take on shadow work, shadow versus high vibe, you know, and just in just terms, and again, talk a little bit in like examples and stories, parables, like the dog thing, and also use a personal story, anecdote, again, I didn't really want to use, from my own personal life to really also drive home the fact that like I understand how hard it is. Like I always say, like I had to eat a lot of shit, like I had to walk through a lot of fire in order to become. So like, it's gonna be all right, guys, like, because it is, right? And it's not just because like I live on a cloud, it's because like I've literally walked through hell on my hands and knees. So like I get it. So yeah, so this was your let's talk about shadow work video. Yeah, I don't think I have a great outro for this. All of these videos, just surprise videos all week, but I love you guys. I do love you guys, and I very much encourage you to love yourselves and to be gentle with yourselves, and know that healing doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, right? It takes two, your shadow and your higher self. It takes two to make a thing go right. So be gentle with yourselves, all right? I love you. I will see you very soon. I'm getting back on the weeklies. Leo and Cancer went up. I don't know who's next. You let me know. Ooh, look what just popped out. It's Temperance. They're like, Lauren, maybe you should go relax. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.